The Collapse of the Quebec Bridge, an engineering failure made twice, by Silas Baker. The Quebec Bridge. The Quebec Bridge, Canada, was one of the world's most ambitious bridge engineering projects at the time of its construction. It was conceived by entrepreneurs from Quebec City who sought to increase business in the area by connecting both parts on either side of the St. Lawrence waterway. If completed, the Quebec Bridge would be the longest cantilever bridge in the world. A cantilever bridge uses projecting beams called cantilevers to support the main part. Cantilever construction is useful in large spans and heavy loading. On the first construction, Theodore Cooper, American bridge designer, chose the cantilever structure as the best and cheapest plan to span the St. Lawrence. This cheapness would also haunt him for the rest of his life, because before construction was finished, his hopes and dreams would collapse into the St. Lawrence. The first collapse. On August 29, 1907, people heard and felt what they thought was an earthquake. Really, it was the Quebec Bridge collapsing. Sad thing is, this wasn't a new discovery. Actually, when Theodore Cooper submitted the proposal of the bridge for review to an engineer of the Canadian government, the engineer criticized the additional length of the bridge. The Canadian government had the idea to hire their engineer to assist in review plans, but with that idea, Cooper grew angry, stating that to do so would be putting him in the position of subordinate. With this being said, Cooper truly had no interest in supervising the work on site at all, and remained in his office in New York City for most of the construction. He entrusted the on-site work to Edward H., the chief engineer, and Norman McClure, the inspecting engineer of the Quebec Bridge Company. Neither one of them had experience in such massive engineering undertaking. In June, this lack of leadership and oversight was showing in the bridge structure itself. When McClure informed Cooper there were errors in the alignment in some of the cord splices on the south anchor arm, and they were being corrected by moving them into line, Cooper responded that it was not serious, still staying in his office, also stating it would be good to take as much care as possible in future work. Later in August, McClure notified Cooper of further issues again in the south anchor arm, this time including some of the lower cords being bent. This time, Cooper asked McClure to investigate. By August 29th, the misalignment of the cords was plainly visible, but the Phoenix Bridge Company did not halt construction. McClure went to visit Cooper in person at his New York City offices to explain the issues, and after their meeting, Cooper telegraphed Phoenixville Contracting Company, saying no more load to the bridge until there was an investigation as to why the cords were bending. Cooper assumed this message would be sent to Quebec City as well, but the message was never sent. McClure then met with the Phoenixville Bridge Company offices, and they all decided to meet again the following day. Meanwhile, back at the bridge, a worker was driving rivets into the southern span of the bridge when he noticed that a rivet he had driven only an hour before had split in two. A worker called out to alarm help, but it was too late. The screech of twisting metal arose from the bridge. A large cantilever fell from under him and crashed into the river. With it, into the St. Lawrence River went the rest of the unfinished bridge. Aftermath. Out of the 86 workers on the bridge that day, many of them passed. 75 to be exact, many of them locals famous for their high steel work. The collapse resulted in damages estimated over $1.5 million, and all happening in about 15 seconds. There was a royal commission formed immediately to do more research into the disaster to get an idea of the cause of the collapse, including eyewitness testimony from the survivors of the collapse. But in the end, it was summed up by the commission as a failure of the lower cords in the anchor arm near the main pier because of the defective design. The site became a sight to see for engineers coming to consider the vast destructive forces of human error. The second collapse. Despite this massive tragedy, the plans for the Quebec Bridge would continue onward, and once again the bridge construction would result with another catastrophic ending and more extremely unfortunate and unnecessary deaths. The Canadian government took over the bridge project and rebuilt it, this time with much heavier materials. But it was no use, as on September 11, 1916, soon after the second Quebec Bridge attempt was lifted in place, A new center span being hoisted in position tore away, sagged, then fell into the river. A few seconds later, the other ends pulled off their supports, and the whole span of the bridge came loose and disappeared into the river. 13 men were killed in this process, and several more were injured. The second collapse was caused due to a failure of casting in the erection equipment that temporarily supported the southwest corner of the span. Defining the bridge span. The span of a bridge is the distance between two adjacent supports. The measurement is the fundamental constraint in bridge engineering, dictating structural forces, the materials used, and the entire geometry of the final design, shown here by the red line. The second aftermath. The collapse of the Quebec Bridge did inspire some to not do the same and caused significant safety changes in construction. It sparked the establishment of the American Institute of Steel Construction, as well as an organization that would eventually become the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. Due to the collapse, in Canada, all graduating engineers received the Iron Lung, serving as a reminder that no matter how technologically advanced engineering practices have become, the basic duty is to prevent disaster. The Royal Commission of Inquiry investigating the tragedy put a majority of the blame on Theodore Cooper, who committed errors in design and his calculation of loads. There was also criticism of the bridge company for putting money above safety and for engineers who neglected their professional and moral duties. Surprisingly, the bridge underwent construction again. This time in 1917, it was finally completed, and the Prince of Wales officially opened it up on August 22, 1919. But the Quebec Bridge will forever be engraved in tragedy and remembered as one of the worst engineering disasters in Canadian history. Here are some more pictures of the tragedy of the collapse of the Quebec Bridge. And here's the Quebec Bridge today. These are my sources cited.